What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Landro back with another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Warner Brother Games and the massive hole that they seem to keep trying to dig themselves out of. That's right, Warner Brother Games, one of the most renowned studios out there that has brought us a lot of games that we love, such as the Arkham series, the Mortal Kombat series, Middle-earth, Shadow of War, and Shadow of Mordor, Hogwarts Legacy, and the list goes on and on. But however, it seems like within the last few years, Warner Brother has been struggling with their latest releases. And all this seemed to have started off back in 2022 with the release of Gotham Knights, which for some initially felt like it was going to be a slam dunk, seen as it was going to be another game in the Batman universe. However, once people realized it wasn't going to be part of the Arkham universe, that seemed to have turned people off a little bit. Now granted, when the game came out, a lot of people still gave the game a solid try. However, it seemed like when it did release, the game was plagued with a lot of issues. Outside the fact that the game came out during a time when the PS5 wasn't even readily available for a lot of people, and was also locked in 30 FPS, which for a game that was going to be only available on next-gen consoles was insane. Now according to WB, it seems like Gotham Knights did eventually break even at the very least, but the fact that it only broke even is clearly not a good sign for a game. Following that, we had the release of Mortal Kombat 1, which was one of the most anticipated games of all time. I was very hooked. I was ready for Mortal Kombat 1, and when that game came out, a couple of things were an issue. The story itself was fine. The combat was, questionable. People didn't particularly enjoy it all that much. I eventually got used to it, but some of the other contents in the game came off to be extremely repetitive and kind of boring, let alone talking about the aggressive microtransactions that was in Mortal Kombat 1 compared to Mortal Kombat 11, where you could unlock a lot of things from the crypt. Instead, in MK1, they were pushing very heavily for people to spend. We can't forget the fact that they were actually charging people for holiday themed fatalities, and they were charging $5 each. Granted, yes, on one hand you can easily say, so what, it's a holiday fatality, but then you can also look at the fact that it's a holiday fatality. You should be at the very least giving that to the players who already bought your game something for the holidays, just as a gesture, but instead you want to nickel and dime and charge for everything. So those are some of the controversy that Mortal Kombat 1 had. Following that, they did have massive success with Hogwarts Legacy, which in and of itself was a single player game, no microtransactions, no nothing. It was just a game that people were able to buy and enjoy all the way through, and the game sold incredibly well. The only controversy that I'd say Hogwarts Legacy had was the fact that it was missing the Quidditch aspect of it, and that was due to the fact that they were planning on making a completely separate Quidditch game, which also came out recently to very poor reception. Now, following the success of Hogwarts Legacy, what came after that was probably one of the darkest times for WB Games. Yes, we are talking about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, a game that easily put WB on the radar of everyone as a studio that clearly, for some reason, didn't know what the hell they were doing with that game. Now, with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, it came from Rocksteady, the studio that's behind the critically acclaimed Arkham series, which everyone really loves. Now, I'll start by saying this. I've played Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, and I can see that there was supposed to be a good game there, a game that the devs were actually passionate about making, something that was going to be fun to play with friends. But what really killed the game is the fact that you can tell that there were so many aspects added to it later on to turn it into a games as a service. The introduction of all the loot and microtransactions that you can purchase, the fact that they keep stopping you mid-mission to show you all the shiny things that you got. You can show that to the players without having to literally stop the game, put them in a whole nother menu, and make them go through one by one to look at a bunch of nonsense that they're probably not even going to use. The pace and the flow of the game was genuinely just jank, and that's due to the fact that all these things initially weren't supposed to be a part of it. Now, personally, that's why I think Suicide Squad did pretty bad, but for a lot of people, the main thing that people kept talking about was, well, basically the story of the game. Suicide Squad kills the Justice League, which in DC fandom, that's nothing new. It's nothing strange. So for that, a lot of people who focused on that aspect of the game, it was genuinely confusing. But when we're talking about the technical aspect of it, you can see that all that microtransaction and all that games as a service features that were there were genuinely added after the fact. Those weren't part of the original vision of the game. And of course, with how bad Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League did, it ended up costing WB Games about $200 million, which is not a great thing to happen. But that's not where things ended on a disappointment train for WB Games. Next up was Multiversus. Honestly, a game that when it was first announced seemed like an absolute slam dunk. It was going to be a free-to-play Super Smash Bros. Style brawling game featuring characters from Warner Brothers franchise, which featured a lot of characters that, for some of us who grew up in the 90s and 80s, really loved. And even then, they had characters from more recent Smash hits, such as the Game of Thrones series. And the game itself played fairly well. There were some balancing issues here and there, but when aren't there balancing issues in a fighting game? But for some reason, the game seemed to not stick. Now, I'm gonna say this. When it comes to Super Smash Bros., yes, it is a very popular series, a very popular franchise, but let's be real here. How many people do you personally know that actually play Super Smash Bros. Religiously? I could probably count on one hand how many people that I know play Super Smash Bros. What really kept it going was the tournament scene for it, which I feel like Multiversus potentially had missed that aspect of it, and ultimately them going free to play potentially also killed the game. If they had just chosen to actually sell Multiversus as a $30 to $40 game, there's a higher chance that it would have probably made a lot more money than trying to make it free to play and relying solely on selling cosmetics. Because not everybody cares to buy a new fit for Shaggy or a new fit for Bugs Bunny. Most people are just going to play the game with the default skins and call it a day. Now with Multiversus, originally when they pulled it down, they claimed that they were saying that it was still on early access, which caused a little bit of controversy at the time because people, again, had spent their money. So that burnt a little bit of good faith with the people who were already enjoying the game as is. And they claimed they did all this because they wanted to take the game back into the oven and polish it a lot more before bringing it out for the full release, which eventually they did honor their word and they came back out with a full release for Multiversus in May of 2024, to which it seemed like the reception was actually pretty good in the beginning. But of course, with a lot of fighting games, hype dies down eventually. And the thing with Street Fighters and Mortal Kombat and Tekken, they make their money up front. They get you to pay $60, $70 up front. They still hit you with the microtransactions at the end of the day, so they're still bringing in more money, but at least they got that upfront cost. Versus something like Multiversus that they were going for a free-to-play route, they weren't making any money up front. Instead, they were relying solely on microtransactions. And I genuinely believe that that was where they messed up with Multiversus. Now, WB Games did recently announce that Multiversus is going to be closing their online servers, which I believe runs from April and should be ending May 30. But at the very least, they still said that they'll keep an offline version for people to play. But just to be safe, you might want us to go ahead and download the game early, because there's always a high chance the game won't be able to download on PlayStation, Xbox, or any of the other platforms. Now, with the announcement of the shutdown, it comes as no surprise that apparently Multiversus had also cost WB Games $100 million, which in 2024 now brings their total loss to $300 million, which is not a good look for a game that's meant to be bringing in profit. So safe to say, WB Games was in a lot of hot water, which led to the current president of WB Games, David Haddad, stepping down after 12 years in his role, leaving the current president of Warner Brothers Discovery, David Zaslav, yes, two different Davids, to basically be the one to have to break the bad news of the gaming division to the investors during their recent investors call. During that investors call, he did touch on some of the upcoming games that WB has to try and appease the shareholders. So some of the things that he did talk about were the upcoming Wonder Woman game, which some of you might remember was supposed to be making use of the Nemesis system that was utilized in the Middle-earth games. However, it seems like they will no longer be utilizing that and instead are now going a more traditional action-adventure route, which I will be quite honest, when they had announced that they were going to be using the Nemesis system for the Wonder Woman game, I was confused because let's be real, what made the Nemesis system work so well in the Middle-earth series was the fact that they could keep churning out as many orcs as they wanted, and when it came to the interaction with them, it felt more organic because one, you are actually able to brainwash them. I believe for some you could potentially bribe them, but that could just be me remembering things wrong. But brainwashing, oh, I remember that part. And even when you were killed, you were brought back as a spirit. It all worked well in the emphasis of what the game was. But with Wonder Woman, she's a superhero. Last I checked, she only has like a couple of villains that she could be fighting, unless they expect us to be fighting a ton of villains in the world that they were creating. But it seems like clearly they realized that it wasn't going to be working as well. So now the game has been completely rebooted, which means potentially some more lost money because when a reboot happens, yeah, usually that doesn't go very well. So that wasn't a particularly great start to the things that we were sharing with the investors. However, the next one was actually pretty interesting. The fact that Rocksteady is officially going to be going back to making a single-player Batman Arkham game, which the players have been asking for a long time, but that game isn't even close to potentially even being revealed. So odds are we won't be seeing that one till probably next generation. They did also touch on the fact that Avalanche, the ones who created Hogwarts Legacy, are of course working on a sequel. We knew that for a while now. We have yet to actually see anything about it, but there's a strong chance that it might actually come out probably within the next few years. And as long as they don't mess anything up, there's a strong chance it will also do pretty well. So as things currently stand, WB needs an absolute win within their video game department. And all we can do, honestly, is just hope that amongst their upcoming releases, a couple of them actually turn out really good. But that's it for today's video, everyone. Let me know what you guys think about WB and their current situation in the comment section below. And if you liked the video, make sure you hit that like button. If you love what we do here when it comes to video game news and reviews, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on that notification bell so you never miss when a new video drops. All right, everybody, that is it for me. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I will catch you all later. Peace.